and thermal and setups and helmets and rifles and anything and everything. And Don is somebody that I lean to for answers on this kind of stuff also. You've been in the industry for a long time. Tell a little bit about backstory, who you are, what you do, and what you've done.
Hi, everybody. I'm Don Edwards. I own a training company called Greenline Tactical, and I guess you'd say one of my fortes or my niche in the training industry is night vision training. I run a course called Night Fighter and stuff like that. I'm a retired Special Forces guy, former Army Ranger. I used to work for a night vision company as the director of law enforcement and government sales. So I've got a pretty, and I've been developing programs like that for about 10 years or more now. Yeah, shoot, close to 15 years I've been involved in developing training programs for the regular guys who just like to shoot, and also for law enforcement and military teams.
Yeah, and Don has been around, and done a lot of like T&E and consulting for a lot of companies for products that you see on the table also.
Behind the scenes, I did get a chance to get involved with some of these companies that make, well, several of the companies that make the stuff that's on this table.
And then he's also been downrange. So he's also utilized a lot of this gear and stuff firsthand. If you guys are looking for any type of training when it comes to night vision gear, I highly think that you guys should check out Greenline Tactical at
greenlinetactical.com.
There you go. So he made it easy.
Facebook, Instagram.
Yeah, he made it easy on us. And Nikki will leave links. And as always, we got Nikki behind the camera here.
What's up, what's up?
So post your questions. Allie's on the back end also, so she'll be putting them up on a teleprompter, and we'll be getting to them. So any questions on rifle setups with regards to night vision stuff, helmet setups,
We've got
where should I start?
pretty good layout here.
Yeah. So based on some new social media rules also, we can't manipulate guns very much online, so just quasi remember that as we go, and just kind of keep that in mind. So we got to live within the rules here. Yeah. So, all right, first question comes from TJ. It says, coming from zero knowledge on thermal and night vision gear, what's a good setup to cut your teeth on? I'll start.
Go.
I would definitely
We're going to say the same thing, I'm pretty sure.
I always tell people, if you only have the money to pick one or the other, probably start with night vision. Start with like a PVS 14. I have two different thermal options here. This is a Pulsar XP38, so this is a dedicated thermal. And then we got a clip-on that goes in front of a scope here. So two different thermal options that I use to hog hunt with. But thermals are fantastic. I love them. I tell people all the time, if it's thermal or night vision, I say both. But night vision is going to allow you to move at night way, way better than thermal will. And it still gives you the capability to do things that you need to do.
Yeah.
So
night vision basically gives you the superpower of being able to see in the dark.
Yeah. And so I would definitely say, something like a PVS 14 on a helmet like this. This is a Team Windy helmet. We got an OpsCore helmet here. We got an M-Tech helmet here, but a bump helmet for the most part.
If you don't need ballistic for whatever reason, I recommend to most people a bump helmet. OpsCore and Team Windy both are probably the two most prolific ones out there, and they're pretty affordable. Some people try to, well, I don't want to wear a helmet. What about these other things? And there are other strap-on type devices that go on your head. They're not really that great if you're going to be traipsing around in the woods at night. And I think we've talked about this, and you've experienced that.
Yeah.
They're great if you're doing stuff indoors and it's not very strenuous. But as soon as you start traversing through the woods and over uneven ground, that flopping, it just doesn't hold it as steady as you need it. And that's why I like a ventilated bump helmet. We're in the South, so air vents are nice, and it's just easy to keep it in place, and after a while of using it, you don't really notice that.
Yeah, and whenever you go with like one of these three helmets, there's so much different customized padding and stuff that you can put inside to really cinch it down. It makes it better than a Skull Crusher.
Yeah.
And just remember, Skull Crusher is not a nice name. You're putting something on your head called a Skull Crusher. So they're not that comfortable. So I mean, just kind of keep that in mind. But definitely a PVS 14.
It's hard to go wrong with.
It is. It's hard to go wrong, and you're going to want some sort of helmet to wear as well. And then I would say a laser on a rifle.
Yeah. A laser is the way that package is intended to be utilized. People in the past wanted and still kind of lean towards wanting to mount their PVS 14 Binocular on their rifle like behind the red dot,
Yeah.
and it's doable. But to be honest with you, it's not a good idea long term, just because that thing is not made for that, to withstand
It's
that kind
hard
of
on
recoil all the
electronics.
time.
Yeah.
So the reason some of these others, or the clip-on devices, which unfortunately we don't have one, they're shock dampened or isolated inside so they can handle. They're made for that.
Yeah.
This is made to be worn on the head by a soldier, and him or her use a laser aiming device on their weapon. So that's the way I recommend using it.
Yeah.
We have a couple of B.E. Myers Malls, but
Holosun.
Holosun makes a really good one, especially for the money.
Yeah.
And Steiner and L3 both make civilian legal versions of the exact same stuff that some of you guys might have actually been issued in the past. They make the ATPLC, which is a civilian-powered version of the PEC 15, and then the D-Ball A3 Class 1 is pretty much the same as what was called the PEC 2 Alpha back in the day. It's just Class 1, which means it's
civilian.
It's not regulated.
Yeah. So I mean, that's kind of where I would say start. If you got any other follow-ups you want us to dive into more of the specifics,
more details about the gear,
let us know. So, all right, Brad wants to know: is there any way to hide yourself from thermals, like special clothing or blankets or glass, or all of the myths that are kind of out there?
You said glass. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, you stand inside of a building with a what's the word? Sliding glass door, and thermal won't see the heat signature. Thermal picks up body heat. So if there's any kind of barrier between you and that, just being inside, obviously. But yeah, you could cover yourself with blankets and stuff like that, or some sort of suit. The problem with a lot of that, especially makeshift stuff, is there's still going to be a blob of something that's not natural.
Yeah. Okay,
so you're hiding your own body heat, but you're creating another anomaly in the baseline that's out there, that somebody be like, well, wow, what's that?
That's weird.
There's a cold spot out there. So now I know there's some people always working on R&D of different type of ghillie nets and stuff like that will reflect it. But even then, it's not something you can just wrap yourself up in and jump on the ground without leaving some sort of signature for somebody who really either A, knows what they're looking for, or B, has good quality thermal. And that's the other thing too. It's easier to hide from inferior thermal. The better it is, the more it's going to see.
And I'll tell you, because I mean, I've seen it firsthand. If you were to hold a pane of glass, if Don was to hold a pane of glass, big 5-foot, 6-foot pane of glass in the middle of the field, I'm going to see a perfect rectangle,
a square
out in the field. So it's not like you can just walk up to somebody with a pane of glass and hit them
But
with
it
a
won't
stick.
see into cars through the windows. You can't look into windows of houses with thermal. Because it's just going to show. It's just going to reflect back at you, basically.
And then the same thing with like a blanket, thick jackets. Think if you I'm going to cover up my hands with gloves, the heat is still going to exit that
somewhere,
at some point, and you're going to be able to see it.
You can mitigate it, but you still need other natural types of camouflage to help you out with that. So if I was behind a bunch of bushes and wearing all this thick clothing, so you're not seeing a distinct signature through the grass or the leaves or whatever, that's a possibility. But yeah, I mean, yes. However, I don't know of anything that's commercially available that is.
I would agree with that as well. So
really do a good job.
Let's see here. Michael wants to know, one night vision mono and thermo mono setup on a helmet doable. So this is, okay, here, I'll pull it out here.
You got the breach.
Yeah.
Okay, while you're getting that out, I'll say, yes, however, not the greatest idea in the world, but we both love these. This is the FLIR breach. It's probably, I mean, it's my favorite little thermal, okay? It's not the most powerful one in the world, but I mean, it's smaller than this. I can fit it in my pocket.
It's great for spotting.
Yeah, spotting. You can carry it around in your pocket, put it on a lanyard or whatever. It runs on a CR123 battery. But there are ways that you can mount two of these together like this. The problem is your brain can't really fuse those two images together like you think maybe it would when you're using a device to fuse them together. I do know people who do that, but what they'll do is they'll wear their binocular to walk around, and they'll have their thermal flipped up. And when they want to see for thermal, all they have to do is rock it down. Now that is a pretty good use. But really, this is about the only device that's
it's usable,
capable of. So bear in mind, if that's the only thermal you have, then yeah, you could do that. you're sacrificing not having a higher quality thermal to see stuff.
Right.
But I would definitely do something like that if I was rocking a PVS 14. I would, but I wouldn't try to use them both at once.
Yeah, and what Don's talking about is, and you'll even see it when you have a PVS 14 that you're wearing for a long time. So like if we go hunting for 8 hours, if you have one eye that's trying to dilate itself to the darkness and another eye that's dilating itself to a pretty bright, green or white phosphor PVS 14, your brain is constantly trying to dilate both eyes at the same pupil rate. So one's trying to enlarge to accept more light because it's dark. The other one's trying to close up the pupil because it's got a big bright TV screen in front of it pretty much. It can cause headaches, it can cause fatigue, but then when you introduce a thermal, now you might have a green picture and a white picture, and they're picking up different signatures also. And so it is doable. You can walk around. I mean, Don and I could both stand here for 10 or 15 minutes and wear them and look like we're Predator or something, But to say that it's going to be something that it's a setup that you can actually work with, it's
not really
it's
recommended. So that's why I said, you can set it up that way, but I prefer not to try to walk around with it that way.
Yeah, and what Don's talking about is you can flip one up or flip one down like this. This is a dual tube here, and get it however you would want. So I mean it's doable, but not really functional to a large extent.
Yeah.
Leave it at that?
Yeah. Not recommended.
Not recommended. There you go. Michael wants to know, I know you can use some night vision units on a helmet and clip onto a rifle. Is there any versatility thermal units?
Thermal
that
really do that. Not really.
No.
Not that I know
When
of.
they first came out the FLIR breach, they quasi said that it was rifle rated. But
it
then
could be used as a clip-on.
But then it kind of went away. As far as I know, Michael, there are no versatile thermal units that you could put onto a rifle click off. Now, let me take that back. There are some Trijicon units, like the Reap IR, and some like that they're small enough and they have a Weaver mount, so you can put it on a rifle, and you can clip it onto a rifle like this, or you can put it on a helmet, is what I meant to say.
With a dovetail.
Yeah, with a dovetail. So Trijicon has a couple that are like that are similar. They're just smaller than this unit here. So that'd be the only option that I know of.
Yeah, but it's smaller than that.
Yeah,
but it's
still big.
Smaller than this.
Yeah.
It's considerably bigger than that. So personally, I wouldn't want to wear a what is it, the Reap IR?
The Reap IR.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to wear the Reap IR on my face. No, and the problem with some of that too is, the Reap has a reticle capability built into it, right?
You'd have to turn that off.
So something like this, some of the things you got to remember is collimation, and if it's going to throw your zero off, if you were to put it in front of your optic, you've got to have a device like the Snipe IR or a CNVD, a clip-on night vision device, that is collimated and designed to give you that minimal, if any at all, shift in your point of impact when you put it on there. Now putting it behind your dot can work for a PVS 14, but this picks up heat, so it's not going to see the red dot inside your aim point. So that won't necessarily work for you on that.
Yeah,
so,
and tell them what
and
you're
those are
talking
just
about
the whys.
as far as like a pass-through, like in this setup, like how it's utilized.
So this here is, this is a clip-on thermal device, the clip-on thermal imager that is set to go in front of a scope. So he can basically turn on thermal and not have to replace his scope. So the zero should be the same.
Yeah, so the zero is the same on this rifle that I have here. And this is a Mark III from Trijicon. And it's made to be like a pass-through unit. So I zero my rifle, and then I put the optic on, and I still have to do some fine taste and collimate it, like Don said. But pretty much I can use this optic in the daytime. At night, I can clip on a thermal, or even during the day if I wanted to.
You can use
I
thermal
clip on a
during the
thermal. If it's real foggy out, things like that, thermal will cut straight through it. So that's what this setup is kind of all based on.
Right, and then similar, what we mentioned that we don't actually have one here would be they call it a CNVD, a clip-on night vision device, would go on here just like this, and it is a night vision device designed to put in front of a magnified optic so that you don't have to do that. You don't have to take this off. You don't.
Yeah.
Have to, and the military spec ones are guaranteed not to change your point of impact more than 1 minute of angle. As you guys know what a minute of angle is, it's 1 inch-ish at 100 yards. So it can't be more than that or it doesn't meet the mil spec. And you just account for whatever that is, and it's always going to be the same.
Right.
Those are really, really cool. They're kind of spendy, and they're a one-trick pony. So, I mean, if you're spending a lot of money and you don't mind, they're really cool.
All right, Tyler wants to know, what are better thermal brands and what should we stay away from? Okay, I'll start here. I mean, this is actually an IR Defense. Trijicon bought them a couple years ago, but it's pretty much the same. Trijicon makes fantastic thermals. Pulsar, this is probably one of my favorite go-to units. I think bang for the buck, the Pulsar, the XP38, the XP50 are extremely hard to beat as far as battery life, features. This can do like picture-in-a-picture, so you can have like a 1X box and you can go up to like a 9 or 12X box, and so
it has onboard
cameras.
And camera
yeah,
and
this is the LRF model, so laser rangefinder. So on this side, which is super cool, you can actually laser rangefind your target and know how far it is, because that's one big thing about thermal. When it gets more than like 50 yards away, it is difficult to tell, is that a cow or a pig at times?
That, and how far away is it if you're trying to hold for distance or something like that.
So so being able to have a laser rangefinder is awesome. So I really like the Pulsars.
We got one piece of FLIR.
Yeah, FLIR.
FLIR's, they've been the gold standard for decades in thermal.
And what are the 223 model?
You have the PTS 233.
Yep.
The PTS 536 and 735.
Yeah.
Those
Way to remember those numbers. Good job.
It's my job.
Good job.
It's kind of what I do. Those are dedicated scopes for rifles. The 233 is a real good entry-level one. It's not going to give you as much distance magnification. So I would say look up the specs on them and see what kind of magnification you're looking for, and kind of try to pair that with the environment that you hunt in, or that you do whatever in. So if you're out in the western states and you got longer distances, then I'd be looking at a Mark III, the 756 from FLIR, or I don't know what or probably
this is a 12, this XP50.
So something that gives you the magnification. You just got to remember that the more magnification you have, is just like a scope, the less field of view you're going to have. And the more you're going to spend.
Yeah, and so I mean, those are definitely brands that I would trust my investment to. I'm not going to say my life, but my investment to, because you're going to get high quality. I've never had an issue with these. They've been in rain, mud, nasty.
Yeah, and they're companies that have been around long enough that you're going to get customer service if anything does go wrong with it.
And just so you guys know, I mean, pretty much everything on this table has been dropped, kicked, banged. Everything.
I know everything on this end of the table.
I mean, every time like we hit a hog, you're going through trees and knocking them, and I've never had an optic lose zero. So yeah, I love them. ATN thermals can be on
I don't have a lot of experience
very
with them,
inexpensive.
So I can't really speak to that. They're popular.
They're popular. But, you just got to get the right ones. Like the Thor model isn't bad, but cheaper, less expensive is harder.
You often get what you pay for.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what everybody's budget is, and it depends on how much you're going to use. If you're going to use it a lot, then I would recommend investing in some good hard use type, higher quality stuff.
Because it's going to last for years.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably, unless you just totally destroy it or throw it in a lake, it's going to last. You pass it down to your kids.
Yeah. I agree. So we'll kind of go with the next one here. Fun with Guns wants to know, from what I understand, there isn't any good options less than $1,000 or something like a PVS 14 Gen 3. Any recommendations under $500? Any experience with knockoff PVS 14s?
Well, do I have experience with knockoff PVS 14s? I got to say no, because I just wouldn't. I'll tell you what Yeager said to me one time. He said, $1,000 worth of flashlights is better than $1,000 worth of night vision.
For the most part.
And I had to stop and think about what he said, and I was like, I like that. I'm going to use that line. And I just did. Because really, what you get in night vision for $1,000, unless you're buying it from your buddy who just got divorced and needs some cash, then you're not getting anything.
I will say I've had
very good.
I had one knockoff PVS 14, what you're going to usually see in it is you're going to need more of like an illuminator in order to achieve the same picture. Like Don and I can walk into a pretty much dark room and be able to navigate, where with like a knockoff PVS 14, if you don't have an illuminator, it's going to look like a 1950s static TV.
Old TV,
that's really what it's going to look like. But you know, if you have a ton of IR light around you, it starts to catch up a little bit. But on really dark nights with not a lot of moonlight or anything like that, they don't work as great.
No, they don't. And that's where even, you know, we haven't even gotten to the Generation 2 versus Generation 3 and, you know, stuff. But the lesser quality or, you know, imported night vision tubes, you'll, standing out on a meadow with a full moon and all that stuff, we may be like, oh, this is great. But you bring it down like, I really don't need my night vision to see across this field at night, right? Once we step into the woods where it's really dark and we've got all the shade and stuff like that, is where you'll start to see the better stuff make a difference when you really want to see in the dark.
Yes. And what you'll notice is they'll usually, on the less expensive ones, they'll put a huge, or try to put a big
they'll have a built-in IR,
in.
and it's not even, sometimes it's just a red.
Right. And that's what they're trying to accomplish.
They're making up for that.
Miss Weatherman is out there. Hello, Mel. You are the best. Tell your husband to get back to work. I'll see him tomorrow. So, love you, Mel. All right. Is there anything to beef up a Leupold LTO tracker, like a bigger screen? I had an LTO tracker for quite a while. As far as a thermal, if you're looking to get in on a budget, they work
I don't
pretty
have
decent.
Much experience with it.
They got a screen on them. You don't really hold them to your eye. As far as a bigger screen, I don't know if it has any outputs on it, if I can remember. I don't know. Nikki might be able to look that up for you and put it down there. I don't think it has any outputs, so I'd say no. Richard wants to know, what is the smallest sight that can be purchased? How far can you see through it? Are you talking night vision or thermal? We'll just go night vision.
Okay. Well, I mean, night vision sights. We're talking about scopes.
Let's go scope. So let's go thermal.
He's probably talking about thermal. Smallest, probably. Well, that comes to my mind would be the PTS 233 from FLIR.
That's what I was going to say.
It's a bit smaller than both of these.
Yeah. I'd probably say something around that end.
You know, but it's still a.
Or maybe some of the night. Listen, guys. At the end of the day, you're going to be tacking on either an external battery pack, like in the Pulsars, like a dedicated, or like two CR123s, or an external battery pack that you plug in. They're just not small at this time. And I think that is one thing, and I'll ask this question. Why is camera technology so much further advanced than like this kind of technology? I mean, you know, we're talking amazing thermals are 640 by 480 resolution. You know,
I don't have an answer for you on that.
I mean, and that's one of the things that I've kind of, you know, thought, but I know there has to go a lot of protection built into them just to absorb the shock and everything of the which a camera does not have to deal with.
And it could also have to do with, you might be wasting that on what the thermal core is actually capable of giving you.
Yeah.
You know, for example, people have brought up the idea of, why don't we put better glass lenses on these PVS 14s? Well, because the glass lenses in them right now are better than what the image that is produced by the device itself. So you'd be just kind of wasting money.
Right.
On some of this stuff. The technology can only see so much.
Harrison wants to know, what about Envision for $7,500?
Envision for $7,500.
Maybe.
Is that one? Envision makes some scopes and stuff like that. Thermal, or not thermal.
Harrison, put in there what exact model you're looking for, and we'll get to it. Higgins wants to know, I see some counter night vision I see some counter night vision. Sorry, the teleprompter's moving. I see some counter night vision techniques and counter thermal techniques. Let's see.
Well, we talked about the counter thermal, like, you know, you can disguise yourself, you know, something that blocks your heat signature, like we said earlier in the talk, but you're still going to have some sort of anomaly. You know, you're going to, all of a sudden, you're going to have a spot that's a different temperature. And that's really, you know, what thermal sees. It just sees something different. Yeah. It sees all the heat, and it you know, gives you that.
Okay, so counter night vision. Okay, here is one thing with night vision. If somebody is really well camouflaged and very static in their movement, you can blend right in and look right over. I've been hog hunting multiple times, driving in a four-wheeler or quad, looking at tree lines, with my helmet on and not seeing a single thing, and then pulled out like my FLIR breech, and there's 8 hogs in a tree line that I was literally just looking at 75 yards away from me.
See it. Well, the thing is, if you wouldn't have been able to see it during the day, the night vision's not going to make you magically see it. So good camouflage techniques, whether it's clothing, whether it's being in the bushes, stuff like that, ghillie stuff, all the stuff that works during the day works the same at night. The way other things that you need to be aware of though is IR light is reflective. So if your clothing, even though it may be camouflaged, it's going to
like this white on Don's,
like this is going to
stand out like crazy.
Jump right out. So the type of fabric, the polyesters, you could wear a black polyester tracksuit, and with IR light and night vision, it's going to look like it's like bright white. So just because the fabric's going to reflect it. So that's something to think about. It's just the reflectivity of what you're doing. But basically, if you would have been doing a good job of hiding during the day, it's going to work about the same.
And if you're talking about counter, if you're thinking, if Don and I are trying to play hide and seek, if Don is walking around shining an IR light, it's like a beacon to the world. Like Nikki has seen this quite a bit. To the naked eye, it's absolutely pitch black in the middle of a field. As soon as you put on night vision, any sort of light anywhere, especially IR, I mean, it's like fireworks going off.
That's like last time we were out too. There's, we had a camp set up way out in the forest.
And
we were out in a field, probably a couple hundred yards away. To the naked eye, looking around, couldn't see anything. Put that on, and it was just
like the whole forest was just lit up.
Looked like
see
it
the
was
glow
a forest
from the
fire.
campfire, even if it's small.
So as far as counter stuff like that, it's definitely you definitely got to know
light discipline,
the differences in light discipline and things like that. So KR wants to know the Psionics Aurora Sport can see up to 11 for $400. So I have a Psionics on the way, actually.
The camera.
This is like it looks like a Sony Handycam almost, but it does night vision. We have one that we're going to be doing some testing on, just because I wanted to.
But they're not really. They don't operate the same.
I don't want to say they're military driven. They're
I'm
more.
sure there was some sort of requirement that somebody asked for this. And
they're
more. But it's more of a camera with a lot of the filters taken out of it, so that it can see more wavelengths of light. So the technology is very, very different, but it is cool.
And so we have one that we're going to have coming in. I was actually talking to the company that's sending it to me, and it should be here in a week or two. So we're going to do some more testing on that.
I might run off with that for a few days.
There you go. So how durable are thermals, say, on air guns for pest control?
It shouldn't be a problem.
No problem at all. I would probably have no problem even mounting like a FLIR on an air gun.
No, I mean, I've never done it, so I know some of the concerns are that the recoil impulse is different. But for example, I talked to the people at Aimpoint about doing that, and they're like, oh yeah, we've had people put them on those big spring-powered ones and stuff, and had no issues with it. They've actually unofficially tested them out. Because I wanted to go shoot iguanas with Aimpoints.
There you go.
Down in South Florida. Let's go.
I
know a dude.
I had a thermal on a 22 that I shot calibre rounds out of, so it was like stupid quiet, and I never had an issue with it, and that was for taking care of varmints. So it should work just fine. Michael wants to know, how difficult is it to navigate in the woods with just a thermal? It's doable, but you got to go pretty slow. The biggest thing is I would say you lose a lot of depth perception.
Thermal mounted on your head is not as good as night vision. I mean, would I use it? What I would probably rather use it for is just to look where I'm going and then go ahead and walk normally like I would at nighttime through the woods, instead of navigate with, because you lose depth perception with a night vision, but you lose even more of it with thermal. And one of the things that you also don't really see is that micro terrain. You don't see that 2-3 inch drop, that little ditch that you normally would see the variation in. You don't catch that with thermal as well as you do with night vision. So Yeah, you could do it. I would just hang it around my neck and use it to scan for like the path I'm going to take, and just walk.
I would agree with that one 100%. Fun with Guns wants to know, have you ever played? He wants to know about a quad.
About panos?
Yeah, panos.
Oh yeah, they're nice. They're nice.
But okay, they're awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not going to deny. I've put one on a couple of times. The field of view from dual tubes to panos though is only, it's like 12.
It's about
15?
It's double.
It's double the amount.
Yeah, it's
because you don't get much more.
Well, you have 40 with this, and you
Right.
have, I want to say 92 or 94 with panos.
So there you go.
So it is panoramic.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. The thing is they're big
And they're heavy.
kind of bulky, and they're light for what they are. They're lighter than what they seem, but they're still, you're walking around with this thing out in front of your face, like the Kraken or whatever, And it's okay if you're
driving,
kicking. Driving is probably one of the best uses
yeah.
for it, because a driver who has to go fast at night,
Yeah.
he sees better. He's got a wider field of view. We drive with these on all the time, but you always have to be looking because you 40 degrees right in front of you. With the panos, you can
kind of be normal, just look ahead and see. Yeah. But they are heavy. I mean, I know that there's some teams that are actually starting to go away from them a little bit, and just going back to like dual tubes.
Guys that I've talked to lately, yeah, it just depends on what type of mission they're using it for. If it's just a one and done, and that's the plan, and it's CQB, they'll wear them. But if we're going to be gone all night kind of thing, they'll wear the duals instead, just because what it offers isn't,
just more comfortable.
The juice isn't always worth the squeeze, I guess.
What night vision / thermal accessories do you use? Chem lights, beacons, etc. Nick wants to know. Well, I'll break out my bag of goodies here, and Don has some too.
Yeah.
All right, so everybody, when I go hog hunt, I hog hunt at least once or twice a month for all night long. So it's usually a 10 to 12 hour night. People think I wear like a chest rig and going fat. I wear a fanny pack. Sorry if you guys have issues. Now this is a London Bridge Trading Company. I know. It's got a kangaroo pouch in the back if you want to put mags.
I need one of those for walking around Disney with the family.
All right, so this is what I use. I put just a small. This is a O light that I have on the front, but it's a real floody light. So after we make a kill, I can light up my footway. I have chem lights on the back of this. The only time I use these are IR chem lights. The only time I'll use this is like if Don and I are both shooting and we hit multiple hogs in multiple areas. When we drive up in the truck or golf cart, I might just snap one of these and throw it down because we know there's 4 more hogs up there.
Right.
And we don't want to go get those and then be like, hold on, wait, where was that? Wait, we were back there. He was to your left, right?
Yeah.
So I might just crack it and throw it down. And then within my bag, I always carry a headlamp with me just to put around my neck. Dark is dark, and you want as much light around you as possible, so I always carry a headlamp. I usually have a Surefire Vampire, so I can either have IR or white light. And then I got extra CR123s. You never leave home without them because we're usually out for quite a while. So I mean, those are the accessories that I use there. I'll always have an IR light on my weapon as well, or like a maul or something to see. So when we're hunting, we're usually cruising up and down fields, like in an off-road golf cart. So we'll just be panning with our night vision, and then I'll pull up like the FLIR breach just to check every now and then, kind of like Don said. But usually what I'll do is I'll put my rifle out front, and I'll just use the illuminator to kind of like big, huge headlights, you know. So those are the accessories I use. You want to talk
just
helmet
to add on to that, our helmets are similarly set up. Mine's set up more for tactical type use, and when I'm out hunting, I usually wear one of these type of helmets just because it's a little bit lighter and stuff like that. But it has a lot of the same stuff on it. A counterweight. I always tell people, if you're wearing dual tube goggles, a counterweight is pretty much a must. What it does for you is, it adds a little bit of weight to your head overall, but you don't notice it because what it's really doing is it's balancing out that teeter-totter. And without it, what you'll end up with is a sore neck muscles at the end of the night, or the next morning you'll wake up and be like, man, what'd I do? Well, you walked around with night vision on your head all night. And if you're not used to it, if you don't do it regularly, you're still going to feel it a little bit, but that's nothing Motrin can't handle. I say it's a nice to have if you're running a monocular like a PBS 14 is a counterweight. You just may not want to put as much weight in it. And these Mohawks that we have on all these helmets have removable quarter-pound bendable weights. So you could take one or two of those out. And it also has, I don't know if you guys see this, but in the back it's got a battery tray, which looks like I need to put some batteries in here for spare batteries, and Velcro for all your cool guy patches.
Yep.
You could slide a chem light across. So yeah, it's
that's
very
what it
useful.
looks like for batteries.
It's very, very useful. You can slide a chem light across the back there, so that if you want to even have a spare chem light to grab, or maybe you want to have just everybody in your party wearing an IR chem light so that we know where everybody is. But that's why we have strobes up here. Is I don't turn that on all the time, but if we were out of the woods at night and we were separating, we'd be like, hey, if we're texting each other, I don't know if we have comms or whatever, but we could turn those strobe lights on infrared, and at least I know, hey, he's over there. It's safe for me to shoot a pig over there, or we can keep an eye on each other that way. Or if you get lost, hey, I'm turning my strobe light on. Oh, okay, I see you. Kind of thing.
And you can get turned around in the woods and things like that, and
especially if you're not familiar with the property, whatever. But chem lights, I always bring lots of chem lights, and not just IR chem lights. I bring the colored ones because. To me, I'll just throw a green or red on the road, like you said. Hey, they're in there, or mark the dead hog carcasses or whatever. Yeah. It doesn't necessarily have to be infrared. They're not always as easy to get your hands on, or more expensive.
No, absolutely.
But shoot, I buy the cheap party ones for the classes. That's what I use. I buy. That's like a bag of 25 for $5 or something like that at Walmart in the party section.
And they work.
Yeah,
they work.
I stock up on them during Halloween.
Yeah, or after. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I use for the training courses, to put them on the students so that I can see everybody and track where everybody's at and mark the targets and stuff like that.
So, so if you got any other questions on and if you guys are wondering, on the back of all of our helmets, we all run the TNVC Mohawk for the counterweights. So
it just works.
Yes.
And it's got so many features built into it.
Yeah.
That for the little bit more that it costs you, you'd spend a whole lot more if you bought this and this and that and a battery tray and other things to put on there. So it's just.
Let's see. Any good thermal mono options under $500? I'd say not really. You could look at like the Leupold LTO, and that'd be about it. Richard wants to know, any thermal night vision hybrids?
Yes.
Is this a thing? How much are we talking?
Well, yes, it is a thing. It's referred to as fusion technology, and we're talking in the 20,000s.
Yeah.
And most of the time that's restricted. You can find it sometimes on the open market or the secondary market, but usually it's government purchase only type stuff, and it's pretty expensive. I think it's going to get better and better. There is the clip-on thermal imager, the Cody. That goes onto your PBS 14, or it goes on to any of these, right? And it projects that thermal image into, it
makes like an outline.
Right. Well, you can. There's a few different settings, and it's probably about the size of 2 big lighters, so it's not really too bulky on there. The thing is, it is a one-trick pony. You can't look through it or anything. It projects it into your eyepiece right here. And then the other thing too, we kind of half jokingly call it the poor man's fusion, but it's still like a $6,000 or $7,000 device that you can only use in conjunction with your $3,000 or $4,000 night vision goggles, night vision monocular. So it's still not
still
cheap.
Spendy. Yeah. Let's see. Ryder Dust wants to know, can you test what you're wearing with those black lights? A $15 one you can get at Walmart. What?
Test what you're wearing. You mean like to see if it's reflective? Not really.
I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Clean that one up, and I will answer it. All right. Harrison wants to know, how do you guys feel about the Envision Halo LRF thermal optic? I was told they're the best on the market and around $7,500. You can shoot 1,000 yards and pick up thermal signatures with them. Yeah, Envision makes really, really good stuff. I wouldn't have any problem with their Halo series at all. $7,500 is listen, it's a lot. I'm not trying to act like it's not. The
but if
Pulsar.
It does all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gravitate towards the Pulsar just because you can get them, probably about $2,000, maybe $1,500 less than that. And where we are, once again, where Don and I are, we don't have 1,000 yards that we can pick something off of. But Envision makes really, really good stuff.
Yeah, I know they make good stuff. I've never used that unit before, so I can't give you an honest
Michael wants to know, have you messed with thermals on drones? So DJI is starting to make a lot more. Nikki knows quite a bit about this. We were talking with Charlie the other night about it. DJI is starting to come out with a line of thermal optic ready drones. They're not cheap. I mean, none of this is. They're not cheap. I've been intrigued by them. I haven't pulled the trigger yet on one. My wife wants a new house, so so I don't get any new toys.
I mean, unless you're talking about like Predator drones, I don't have any experience with them.
Yeah. So
one other interesting fact to that too is a lot of guys now are using drones to use the drones as a light source for photography.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if I'm going to shoot a picture of this building over there, get 2 drones, fly them out there. They illuminate the building for the photography, one thing. Nice. But switch that out to IR, and now you've got a mobile IR source, illuminator.
I like where you're going.
So instead of your illuminator just being on your person, now you can deploy it and then light up something.
I like where you're going with that.
We're going to have to try it. Mm-hmm. All right. If you can only afford thermal or night vision scope or goggles, which would be most cost efficient?
Yeah, that goes back to like the very first question we started talking about. If it's either or, I say start with thermal, and so does John. Or not start with thermal, start with night vision. Cost effective, a good PVS 14, you can't go wrong with. A bump helmet, a good solid mount setup, and a good laser. Holosun Steiner, one of the B.E. Myers is going to cost you more.
Yeah.
It's, you get a lot for it. But you're looking at an entry level into that for anywhere between $4,000 and $5,000, in my opinion, depending on what accessories you get. Maybe a little bit more if you go with
Wilcox mounts.
Wilcox, like the G24, the dovetail style. You're going to spend a little bit more than that. I don't know if you go with like an unfilled white phosphor tube, you're going to spend about, you jump this up from $3,000 to $4,000 on the PVS 14. So
talk a little bit. Let's go one step further.
Yeah.
If somebody says, I want a PVS 14, because that is a very generic term. That's like saying I want a pickup truck.
Right.
What brands, what features are they wanting to read in the description to know it's what they're wanting to get?
Good question. So
I don't ask bad questions.
A PVS 14, that's a military designation for this night vision binocular. I have one here. John has one there. What kind is yours?
That's a TNVC.
Okay, so these are both TNVC made night vision binoculars, PVS 14s. The big thing is do some research. If you're buying it secondhand, which there's a lot of these out there, secondhand. Guys bought them, then they ended up getting some dual tubes. They want to get rid of these. I don't know why. Maybe just to free up some cash or something like that. But ask him, where did he get it? Who made it? What's the manufacturer? But if it was made by TNVC, which is what we have in our hands right now, I promise you,
L3.
since I used to work there, that they are a good, well-made quality unit. L3 is the prime vendor right now for all the military contracts. If you find some older stuff, ITT, which was bought by a company called Harris, so you might find an older PVS 14 made by ITT. That's a factory-made unit. Generally, might have been even made under mill contract, or they had some law enforcement versions and then some commercial stuff. And L3, so ITT or Harris are the brand names on that side. L3 was...
And then save the extra money. If it takes you a couple more weeks or months, get a Gen 3 over a Gen 2.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's some good quality Gen 2 stuff out there. I'm not going to, pretend there's not. But I still think the performance isn't, like I said earlier, when it's really, really dark and you want to see in the dark, the Gen 3 is going to outperform the Gen 2, the European stuff that's coming in. However, some of the Gen 2 stuff is starting to rival in performance the Gen 3, but it still doesn't have the dark capabilities that...
And then let's talk about green over white.
Okay, well...
$1,000 or so.
Well, in price, and it also depends. So green versus white phosphor, and I can't really go in without graphics and all that stuff of how the inside
of it works.
He can go into
it, trust me.
Yeah, we can nerd out. I don't even know if we have enough time for that, but I don't have my projector and PowerPoint. But it's just a color palette that you see. So your image is projected onto this screen. They call it a phosphor screen, and because it's a phosphor coating on the screen, right? So initially it was determined that green would be the best choice. Over the years, and I'd say over the past 10 to 15 years, we've kind of determined that white phosphor gives us a brighter image, right? But just changing this color of the phosphor screen doesn't give you higher performance. It gives you a little bit brighter image, so you might perceive that you see things a little bit better,
Yep.
and you actually may see a little bit better, but the quality, the actual quality of the image doesn't change when all you do is change the color. The biggest difference and where the leap in performance is one company, L3, makes a different type of tube, and it's unfilmed. So it has fewer layers for the light to transfer through, which gives you a higher quality image to begin with. So an unfilmed green phosphor tube would beat out a filmed white phosphor tube, if that makes sense. So that's what you want to look at right there is it filmed or unfilmed? And yeah, two tubes the same, and you can get one in white phosphor, one in green. Yeah, go for the white. You might like it a little bit better, but there's nothing wrong with green.
Yeah.
You know, I always extol how much I love white phosphor and unfilmed white phosphor because that's what I have. But for years and years, we did just fine with green.
All right, let's see here. Is there an article I can read about the subject about knotting a FLIR?
What? I don't know.
What does knotting a FLIR mean? I don't know. I don't know. We're going to go to the next one here. Whatever happened with Cadillac night vision windshields? So that
I don't know.
I'll be able to answer
you're more of a
this
car
one.
dude than
Yeah,
I
I'll
am.
be able to answer this one. So a lot of cars, I don't want to just say higher end because there's a lot of car companies like Chevy even, but I mean Audi and Mercedes and BMW. A lot of car companies are starting to put thermal units on the grills of their cars, and the reason for it is when there's a lot of fog out, it cuts right through, and they just have like a on-screen projection onto the front windshield. So one of the vehicles that I test drove once had it, and it's pretty cool. You know, you can use it at night, but I mean, it's one of those things where I think there's some aftermarket units out there that you can install in vehicles. But that's the reason they're doing it. It's so that you can see through, you know, you hear about these
Inclement weather and stuff.
Yeah, you hear about these car crashes of like 90 cars on the Golden Gate Bridge. It's because they can't see anything in the fog and they just keep piling up. So, yeah, so I mean, that's that. I mean, it's definitely becoming more prevalent in a lot of cars, and you'll probably start to see that technology trickle down into more and more brands. So, Michael wants to know a quality night vision mono and thermal scope with a QD mount on a rifle for hog hunting or SHTF setup. Options, please. So, well, I mean, why don't you just say your rifle setup here and kind of what you have? I mean, it's
yeah. I don't have nothing here is really QD on mine, but I mean this is set up with lasers.
yeah.
So this is an aim point comp M5 and a magnifier. Okay, so this is the new Unity fast mount stuff and a laser. None of this is really QD though.
Yeah.
This is the Mall from
So-
Myers, and I got a good white light here from Mod Light. But what you have here.
My
I mean,
thermal
these are all
here, I mean,
QD.
this is a quick screw off, so I mean, I could take
Yeah.
this thermal off pretty fast.
These have throw levers on them.
This
The
has
Trigicons all have throw
Yeah,
levers.
this has throw levers on it. So, I mean, this is just a daytime optic, and then I can just quickly pull these, pull this, and it pops right off.
Yeah. The FLIR models also have ADM throw lever mounts.
Yep.
So they're QD. The FLIR
So-
PTS line all has those. So they're easy to take on and take off.
Yep.
And they use good quality mounts that you should be able to return to zero.
Yeah.
As long as you put it back in the same spot on the same rifle, you should have no issue.
And there's a couple PVS 14 clip-ons if you want to run them, like behind
Yeah.
an aim point.
Yeah, so
that like
the only
LaRue
way
makes.
the only way you can really run a PVS 14 is on a rifle is behind a red dot.
Yeah.
Right. So it would be on a mount similar to this, and it would basically maybe not go up and down, but maybe twist on and off. As a matter of fact, my 14 has an aim point twist mount adapter on it. Right. So Aimpoint makes a twist mount version
Yep.
that goes on that locks in place. I used to keep this around, and I'd have my magnifier on during the daytime, and I could take that off, and I could put this on if I wanted to, or I could have it up here or something like that. And
Yeah,
I
just
still
versatility.
still have that on there. So that is one way to do a PVS 14 for that. As far as, I would say most, if not all, that I'm aware of the night vision scopes have some sort of QD throw
Yeah.
lever.
Let's see. KR wants to know any experience with the Cry nightcap.
Yeah,
it's
yeah. Well, that's
a
what I
new
was
age-
talking.
It's a new age skull crusher.
Yeah, there's a few companies. Cry makes one. First Spear, I
Yep.
believe, makes one, and there's several others out there. And that's kind of what I was alluding to. I just didn't want to call anybody out. I like them.
Yeah.
They're comfortable to wear. They just don't hold things in place if I'm doing anything much more than what I'm doing right now. If I'm walking around inside the house and I want to make sure that I have my night vision with me in case I need it, that's great. And I can fold it up and shove it in my
Yeah.
pocket. And that's what that originally was made for, was for guys that did plainclothes stuff in other countries and they couldn't really take all their
Well, walk around
combat
with a
gear with
helmet,
them,
yeah.
right? But they could have a little messenger bag with some night vision and some other stuff, and they could have that little thing they could put it on if they needed it. And
And if you guys don't know what we're talking about, it's kind of similar, I'd say, to like a rugby helmet.
yeah, it's
Like-
just like a mesh.
Yeah.
They're like a mesh, nightcap kind of thing with a chin strap and
Yeah.
some tightening straps, and then this shroud that's on the front of these helmets
Yep.
is on the front, and it's a way to wear it. But if you're going to be doing anything like I said earlier, traipsing around in the woods
Yeah.
or something like that, it wouldn't be my first choice.
I agree. Eric wants to know, we run 31s and 18s at work for personal use. 18s aren't cheap. I have a 14 for the left eye and an XP38 on the right for my gun. Wanting to upgrade to DT NVGs. How do they compare to 31s? Well, you're talking to two guys that have
Yeah, we're
DT
both
NVGs.
DT NVG guys, and I love 31s.
Yeah,
So the DT NVG has a lot of benefits.
it's a lot lighter.
For the average dude. Well, it's a
lighter.
couple ounces heavier
Yeah.
than a 31.
Oh, is it heavier?
Yeah, but a couple of ounces.
Yeah.
I think it's like 2 to 3 ounces.
With the battery pack?
As you and I have it right here.
Okay.
Without a remote battery pack.
Okay.
So, but like I said, I want to say it's like not more than 4 ounces heavier. And the 31 was designed to be really small
Yeah.
and lightweight, right? They're a lot less expensive. You
Yeah.
can get them for considerably less. They still articulate
Yeah.
like a 31. One of the big selling points for me, for us average guys, now that I don't get issued this stuff by the government anymore, is repairability and logistics, basically. So the lens assemblies front and back on all these, they're the same as what's on a PVS 14. So if something happens to it and it gets busted, there's a lot of places I can get this thing fixed. If you have 31s, the only place you can do only thing you can do is send it back to the factory. And I promise you, you're not going to be at the front of the line,
Right.
Because their primary customer for the PVS 31 is the military, primarily the special operations community. So, it's much more easy to support any problems you have. Other than that, or in addition to that, the tubes on the inside are what make the magic happen, and they're the same.
Yeah.
These are L3 unfilmed white phosphor tubes, the same tubes that would be in a PVS 31 if I had those. So
How long have you had yours?
I've had those for 4 years or so.
I've had mine for about the same,
about
4 years. Yeah,
So
and I've
they're
never had an issue.
generally, they're not exactly the same tube because they had to make them smaller because the whole PVS 31 housing is smaller. But image-wise, the data sheets
Battery
that
life
come
is
out are the
fantastic.
same. Yeah, battery life on these, what are we getting, 30
Yeah.
straight hours of continuous use out of a CR123 battery, which 31s run on a AA. You got to be using lithium AA's, or you'll be changing batteries every 45 minutes.
Yeah.
With alkaline, you can get it to power up, but you'd be lucky if you get more than a half hour out of it in a pinch. So yeah, there's a lot of for us average Joes, and even the law enforcement clients that I work with. The 31s are popular, but I think a goggle like this system or something similar is a lot easier to support long term.
And if you're interested in any of this gear, we pretty much carry everything at Big Daddy Unlimited, so check it out at BigDaddyUnlimited.com. We are TMVC dealers, so that's where all of my stuff has come from as well. Jake wants to know options or opinions on an ATN as a brand.
Yeah.
Nothing
no
against them.
experience over here really, but I've never really used it.
Nothing really against them. You know, they cater to a less expensive line. You know, but that's what they're good at. So as long as you get a decent one, you know, like I said earlier, the Thors aren't bad, things like that. You should be pretty happy with it. So let's see here.
Tents and tarps and clothing for low IR night vision signature. Yeah, you know, like we kind of hit this already, but it depends on what kind of fabric it's made out of. So I know like the blue Walmart tarp that I have in the back of the 4Runner, that's gonna reflect like a mirror of light. So night vision, it amplifies available light. So anything that you have that's gonna reflect anything is gonna jump out at you. Like I said, polyester clothing will look like a little beacon out there. So a shiny vinyl or whatever that PVC tarp is going to reflect any ambient light that's out there, whereas an old school, you know, oily type, you know, cotton or whatever it's
wax
made out of,
or wax
tarp
canvas
is going to be a lot more dull, and the light's not going to reflect off of it. Same with your clothing, like I said, polyester versus cotton versus wool. You know, some of the old, I've got one of those old military ponchos from the desert nighttime stuff, and you know, and it's supposed to be treated with some stuff. And the old BDUs were supposed to be treated with something, and after you washed them a dozen times, they wouldn't be as anti-reflective.
All right, I got it now. You want to know about the lights, like black lights, for testing fabrics. If they shine under that, will they shine under IR?
I don't know.
I don't actually know. Nikki?
Yeah, maybe.
Unknown. Let me look into that.
Kind of makes sense that it might.
Yeah, you'd probably, because I'm sure that it's similar in wavelengths of an IR light, so it'd be similar. I don't know. I've never tested that though, but I get what you're saying. But yeah, as long as the fabric, and listen, there's a lot of times where like you'll see like jogging clothes and stuff are made with a high visible fabric, so that when car lights hit them, they flash a ton. So anything like that. Let's see, how can you decrease the glow of a thermal onto your face when you're using a scope? You can
keep your rubber eye caps on.
Yeah, so you can run an eye cap that can go all the way to your face. That'll kill pretty much 100% of the spill. You can always turn your thermal down as far as the intensity, the brightness. Most of the time, do you run an eye cup? Do you run an eye cup on your dual tubes? Do you run them down?
I leave them on, and occasionally I'll flip them down, but for the most part I don't use them that much because they tend to get in the way, and they also on goggles when I start to sweat. Having that seal around that rubber seal just fogs everything up. So I have a tendency not to do that.
I tend to just run the rubber boot on my thermals, and it works just fine. Is there any way of testing, this kind of goes back to the last question, the reflectivity of clothing without night vision? I don't know.
I'd have to do some speculating about the black
Nikki, put that down. Put that down. We're going to do some testing.
Yeah, the only thing that I'm seeing is that IR and UV are similar wavelengths.
That's what I was
not
thinking.
The same.
Yeah. No, so they're not the same.
It's not like a one-to-one.
Right.
It's not like under UV it'll look different.
Well, they're different spots on the spectrum for sure.
All right, here's what we're going to do. Nikki and I will put a video together. We might invite Don to come back and geek out with us one night, and we'll just grab a bunch of fabrics, a bunch of different lights.
Nerds at night.
I like that.
Coined.
But we also, Don hasn't seen this yet. We have a mount for Nikki's DSLR camera that takes a PVS 14, so we can get like awesome footage at night. So you can kind of see exactly what the camera and what we're seeing through.
And you can see Chris Weatherman snoring.
Yes, and you can see Chris snoring around the fire all night long. So, is the Trijicon Snipe IR useful, or in a general, are a clip-on thermals useful? I mean, this is similar to a Snipe IR. This is the Mark III. Which was the predecessor from IR Defense. So,
well, and they came out with a Snipe IR right before they became Trijicon. But
so you know, as far as clip-ons, I love it. The reason I like a clip-on is the fact that for the most part, I can zero a daytime optic, and then if Don was like, "Hey, I was wondering if you had an extra rifle for me," I can like here and just clip on a thermal in front of it. Where this is what I primarily use when I hog hunt, and I just leave it dedicated, set up. It's a thermal gun, which let's kind of break that down. You can 100% use a thermal during the day.
Yeah.
It works just fine.
Thermal doesn't care.
Right.
It just sees variations in heat.
And I mean, Nikki and I with this thing have hit silhouettes at 400 yards. I mean, it picks up steel, it picks up cardboard. I mean, you can see anything out there. But you know, when it's a built-in unit, it kind of becomes dedicated. And trust me, you'll make your life hell trying to take this thing off, put an optic back on it, use it for a daytime, use it for a couple of days, take it off, put it back on, re-zeroing
Most
constantly.
guys, after talking to them for any period of time, realize that, you know what, if I'm going to spend that much money for a thermal, I can either A, have just a dedicated rifle for thermal hunting, or have a dedicated upper.
Yeah.
If they don't want to spend the money for a complete rifle, or they love the way their lower set up and they just want to build another upper or just a full rifle, you know, because you got to remember, you're already spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
Swapping things around isn't always, you know, preferable.
Let's see here.
What about we just write all our stuff down?
Okay, here's what I'll do. I will have Nikki make a list of everything that we have on the table. You're welcome, Nikki. Nikki.
I think I got to go.
Don and I are going to go hang out, and Nikki's going to write a list of everything we have here.
I got work to do.
But yeah, we will get a list of everything we have here. But what I'll have Nikki do, though, is I'll have Nikki take a couple different pictures of our different setups, and we'll post the pictures on like Facebook and Instagram with a list of all the items, and we'll call them all out so you guys know exactly what's on the table here. So we can. That's easy. That's an easy one. I'll get it done for you.
John says it's easy.
It's easy for John.
Hey, it gets done, don't it? I got it done. It just got Nikki to get it done.
Mic drop and walk away.
All right. What about an emergency blanket? It reflects heat.
Yeah. The problem you have to deal with is now you have a blob of something that's not the same temperature as all the stuff around it. So if you're able to conceal that under a pile of straw or something like that, then sure. But then you might as well just crawl inside the pile of straw, or you know, something. So either way, what you're looking at is some sort of anomaly in the baseline of the landscape. That are you creating another anomaly by covering yourself up with something
that stands out even more, or for the most part,
as much, only differently.
Aerial Expos wants to know, how about the Armacite BNVD 51s by Armacite? I heard they suck for CQC.
Yeah, not a big fan.
You can just briefly, if you want to.
Well, I mean, if it was such a good idea, we'd have been doing it a long time ago. The lens, 40 degrees is all we really get out of that lens, that type of lens that we have here. And I've looked through them. Anything outside of the standard 40 degrees, which is that, 11 degrees on the outer edges, is kind of fisheye and not really that great of an image. So you still really have a 40-degree useful image that you would want to have. So it's, I'm not saying it's a gimmick, but it's not. I don't think it's worth it. Yeah. I think stick with what we know works on that. And I mean, it was a nice try.
If you want to comment on this one, you can. Troops of the future may ditch night vision goggles in favor of eye injections to see in the dark. What are your thoughts on this? Nanoparticle injections could give warriors the power to see in the dark.
I don't know. Didn't Riddick do that?
Riddick had some specials.
He had some specials.
He had some
special implants.
He had some upgrades.
You know, listen,
that's medical technology.
Technology is always going to advance. I mean, thermals used to be yay big. Yeah. Night vision used to be yay big. Now we're talking it's yay small. It's going to continue to get smaller. It's just like, I mean, cell phones.
Well, I mean, and
it's
now you're talking about, you know, is that even ethical to be, you know, for soldiers to have that done to them and stuff like that? And you know, those are questions that, you know, also just because you can, should you, doesn't mean you should, kind of thing too. And I don't even know if that's capability, you know, if that's a possibility. I'm sure somebody's trying to figure out how to do it. I'm sure there's a Dr. Mengele that is trying to do that to, you know, to come up with that technology. But, you know, I don't know that I would line up to have that. Well, maybe I would. But, But
The vision's going anyways
then,
at this point.
yeah,
you know?
I'll take whatever helps at this point. But yeah, that's the other thing is like, are we really going to do that to people? What happens when your 4-year enlistment's up and
Right.
now are your eyeballs classified?
Right.
Can you not get out of the Army? So yeah, I don't know about that.
Michael wants to know, do night vision and thermals have a service life?
Yeah, well, night vision does for sure. Thermal, I don't know. As far as it's a
I've only
camera.
had batteries go out on me. That's it.
Night vision, per military specifications, they're guaranteed 10,000 hours of use, which is a long time.
That's a lot.
I don't know. I've heard of people like wearing them out, but I don't really know anybody who's used one until it no longer worked. 10,000 hours is, somebody did the math, like 3.5 or 4.5 years of 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year of using it. That's like a stack of cases of batteries of using it. And then at 10,000 hours, it's not that they die, that's like the mean time to failure. So that's when it's gonna not be as good as it was. I mean, as soon as you turn it on, it's starting to degrade and starting to burn itself out. But be honest with you, you're going to pass this stuff on to your kids.
And let's talk about things that can hurt night vision.
Oh yeah, too much light.
Yeah.
Too much light, even though modern US-made Generation 3 night vision is auto-gated. And what auto-gating is basically is the goggle, the tube itself senses when there's more light than it needs, and it basically throttles back on the amount of power that it's pulling from the battery in order to not oversaturate itself with light and cause any damage. Yeah. And it also tunes it down so it doesn't blind you. That is a safety feature inside of the goggle that prevents it from getting burnout, which Gen 2, you could definitely damage it bad. However, really bright lights or IR laser type light going right into it can burn spots into it that are permanent. So you can have light damage, but general, just like casual exposure to light is not going to be a big deal. Looking at the sun with it turned on will burn a hole in it because it just can't handle that, even with auto gating, and it wasn't intended to protect it about that. So that is one of the things that can. And then the other thing is just not taking care of it. Letting junk get in it. They're waterproof. Good, well-made ones are waterproof, but we always say store it with the batteries taken out. If you take it off and you put it in your safe or whatever till the next time you use it, take the battery out, because one of the biggest things that we always had problems with was people leaving their alkaline batteries in there, which I bet you there's a battery in this, but I use it a lot all the time. It's just never put in the safe. But you leave this battery in there, especially the older alkaline batteries. This is, I think that's a lithium.
Yeah.
But an alkaline battery starting to leak out on you inside of here.
You're drilling them out.
I mean, you're getting it out. It's fixable.
Yep.
You're not going to ruin the tube, so the expensive part's still okay. But this is still going to cost you between $200 and $300 to get a new one of these power supplies put on there. So save yourself some headaches. Take the battery out when you are no longer using it, when you're putting it away from being out in the field or whatever. If it's something that you use for a living, if you're in law enforcement or something like that, then I get it. But check it every once in a while, and then change the battery out if you're using standard stuff, just so that you don't get a battery that swells up in there.
All right, we'll skip down to the bottom here.
Okay.
This is back to the BNVD 51. How does it compare to a 31 or DTMVGs?
Well, like I said, the internal tubes, same stuff. There's only 2 manufacturers in the country of those, so it could either be an L3 or a Harris, which now they're kind of sort of the same company. It's the lenses. I prefer the standard 40-degree field of view because that extra 11 degrees on the edge is a little bit blurry and fish-eyed from everybody that I know that's tried it. And we know that the DTMVGs are rugged. I've been using, well, I haven't had these DTMVGs for 4 years, but these tubes that are in here I've had for 4 years. But I've been using these for about 2 years now, almost, and I've been demoing them and messing with them since they first came to the U.S. And they've proven themselves to me to be rugged, and I like them.
Jake wants to know, do you guys use scopes and goggles to hog hunt? When would goggles be superior to scopes? Yeah.
We generally use both.
These are 2 of my hog hunting rifles right here. I hog hunt a couple times a month. This is the helmet that I use, so I'll use night vision goggles to drive, maneuver, to get into position. I'll usually flip up my right thermal or my right binocular so that I can still walk if I have to stalk a little bit more, and then I go straight to a thermal scope
For shooting. Yeah.
for shooting. And so that's what I prefer. Now you can hog hunt with an IR illuminator and laser pointer with just keeping your one or dual tubes down. It's definitely doable.
Yep.
But I prefer thermal just because it gives me a different picture also, and you see things a little bit differently.
Yeah, and I fall to old habits of primarily using a laser for engaging targets and shooting because, you know, I mean, I kind of tend to hunt pigs the way I used to hunt folks and stuff, but I would still use a handheld thermal to scan. So these are definitely either monocular or binocular. You're walking around doing everything under nods. Some guys, and thermal, they just do two different things. They complement each other. Thermal is good for target detection, not as good for identification necessarily. And night vision is much better at target identification, but not necessarily as good at detecting because it doesn't pick up the heat signatures. So having both is definitely the way to go. And whether you mount it on a gun like John likes to do, or you just do a handheld one like I do.
Nick wants to know, do you guys mount your PVS 14 on your dominant eye or off eye when mounted to a helmet? What about sighting through a scope? So your second question kind of answers your first question. Always put it over your non-dominant eye.
Well, especially if you're going to be using a scope.
Exactly.
You know, otherwise it doesn't necessarily matter. You know, in the old days, we used to always say non-dominant eye because, and this is from a military SWAT perspective, if you need to go with white lights and your aim point, then you don't have to worry about this being in the way. You can still cheek your rifle the way you want to. Now we use some of these taller mounts and it's not an issue, but again, if you want to get up, you get behind your scope, you're going to want to have your shooting eye to be free. You know, ideally you want to flip it up and get it out of the way anyways.
Yeah. And if you are, talk about having it over your non-dominant eye and still being able to see a red dot with your dominant eye.
Okay.
You can,
it works out to only a certain distance because your eyes are looking at two different images now and they're not really fusing it together. So you're seeing your red dot here. Yeah. So it works for close quarters type stuff. If you're going to do something like that, I would say go with a tall mount like what I've got here or he has there, and then wear it over your shooting side eye.
And talk about a little bit why we both run IR lights and white lights on a pressure switch.
Well, I teach, you know, the name of my course is Night Fighter, so it's not just about night vision, it's about anything and everything.
Once the sun goes down.
Yeah, once the sun goes down. So we have white light at our disposal in the form of flashlights, we have night vision, and we have thermal. So, you know, that's the kind of stuff that we work on, integrating all of those systems into those types of operations. So what was the question? It was, why do we have it set up this way?
Yeah.
So I have, of course my Muzzle's not plugged in right now, but I can turn this on here, or I can hit my white light here without really changing my grip very much. So I can transition from one and back to the other quite easily without having to move my hand around. I know where the different buttons are, and this one will fire my laser as well. So that's why we run the tape switch. You got the Surefire, I've got the TAPS dual switch here, and then we both on our short guns here have the Unity fast mount.
Yeah.
I've been a Kool-Aid drinker for the taller mounts on ARs, like for
a 193 or taller.
193 or above. So I mean, I've got all the flavors. I got a couple of 193s. I've got the 233s from ADM, and then I've got this as a 226 or 206.
Something like that.
It's about right in between.
Yeah.
So they're all taller, and you got to get a taller cheek weld or put your chin up on the stock. So what that does during daytime shooting, it allows me to keep my head up and just bring the gun to my eyes instead of having to get on it like that, right? So it actually makes my CQB style shooting faster and more intuitive once I go back to what I tell people to do instead of what we had to do because our mounts are lower. And then the other one is, if I want to shoot without turning on my laser, let's say my battery died or something happens, or I'm concerned that whatever it is that I have out there can also see my laser and I don't want to turn it on, then having that dot up taller makes it easier for me to bring that dot in front of the goggle basically and shoot without having to treat it. And I've rocked steel targets from 200 yards all night long
All right,
without turning the laser.
We're going to take just a couple more questions here because, as always, we go way over an hour. What are your opinions on Harris being purchased by Elbit Systems?
It is what it is. I don't, they didn't ask me. I was wondering if it was going to be any monopoly type issues, but I think that I don't know that it's under the exact same ownership.
Right.
But, I mean, I don't think anybody's seen any negative impacts from it on the business side of the contract side. I know it must be legit enough, or the government wouldn't have let them do it, because their main customers are the military. So they're a government contractor. They wouldn't let a monopoly on that actually happen.
And just for everybody that's here, tell everybody where they can get more information on your classes and where they can find you.
I'm Don Edwards. Website, schedule's on greenlinetactical.com, or find me on Facebook, Instagram, Greenline Tactical, Facebook, Greenline Tactical. And usually social media is one of the ways we put out the schedule as it goes. But I've got night fighter classes booked right now up until probably March timeframe. Mm-hmm. Some of them are sold out or closed already, but there's stuff on the table on the schedule still. And then usually it'll kick back up for the most part in November. So fall to early spring, when it gets dark early, is when we pretty much, I call it night fighter season.
It's hard because I mean, I've taken classes too and it's hard when it's 9:30 and we're all like waiting around for it to get dark, and you're like, man, it's already 9:30 at night and we haven't even started yet.
Unless we have an indoor training facility where we can just turn all the lights off and it's instantly dark, which, an indoor, then it's got to be an indoor range or something like that. Then it's really hard. So as soon as daylight savings time ends in November is when classes kick on.
I'll let you take the bottom one.
Okay.
There.
Oh, the bottom one. Oh, outside of adding a Cody. So Adam wants to know any other suggestions for a fused Bino setup outside of adding a Cody. Not that I'm aware of. I mean, they've got the new E-Cody. So the first Cody, and a Cody stands for the rest of you guys, clip-on thermal imager. And it's guys that just joined us. It's about, what did I say before? It's about the size of 2 big lighters-ish. Not the exact same dimensions, but that's about the amount of bulk you're putting up there. That has a thermal sensor in it, and it projects that image onto your, overlays it onto what you're seeing through your PVS 14 or your goggle. Man, that's, it works really well with goggles, even better. But I don't know of anybody else making anything similar without going straight to the PSQs and stuff, the dedicated fusion systems that are really expensive and almost impossible to get your hands on.
All right, then last question here, and then we'll let you guys go, and because we got to run and do some questions here. If you didn't run a suppressor, talking about flash hiders or muzzle brakes, are they ever going to blind?
They're not.
Night vision goggles if you're using them.
No, actually they're not at all. You're blinded more without night vision by stuff like that than you are with it. Because when I talked about earlier, the auto gating of your tubes, you won't even notice it. And we do this thing called Friday Night Fight Club once a month, and some dudes will come out there with these blaster comps and everything on there, and you don't even want to be around them because it's like, I mean, you got your nods down, it's not that big a deal, but if you're catching it from the side, it's like, holy shit, that's bright, and it's like, wow, cool, but auto gating works.
There's always one of those guys.
Oh yeah.
There's always one.
He's like, yeah, my can got a baffle strike, so I couldn't use it or whatever. But that's what most people are concerned with. So if you were setting up a gun for night fighting or night shooting, you want to have that as a consideration, though, not because of your night vision, but because you want to reduce your signature as much as possible. So guys that are concerned about that are more interested in flash hiders than they are comps and brakes, or they're more interested in their can not only suppressing the sound but suppressing the flash too, because there's some that you can still see all kinds of fire.
And that's where you'll get a lot of like small cans like this Surefire Mini too here. Not much sound suppression coming out of this thing. I mean, it's 2 baffles. You'll get a little bit. Still, I mean, out of a 5.56, 11.5 like this, it's still you're gonna want to wear ear protection, but it's gonna mitigate a lot more of that flash, and that's what it's really designed for.
For a while, we were trying to refer to them in the Army as signature reduction devices. Just trying
not sound.
I mean, reducing the signature all all around, and but flash hiders for a night gun if you're not running a suppressor. is probably a better idea than a comp, unless you got one that does both.
So guys, that's it. There's a ton of questions, a ton of great questions. We love each and every one of you guys for popping on here. I know it was a different time on Thursday, but it was the only day that Don could get up here for the next couple of weeks. Chris should be here tomorrow. I think we're going to do a live. I don't know you just yet. We'll see there. And then we'll be here the next week, and then the following week, Don and I will both be in beautiful Las Vegas for SHOT Show, which everybody thinks is
We're going to go
great.
live from
Oof,
there.
we might. I don't know. But
It's a chore, but
I
mean
it's work.
It's fun work, but it's work.
It's work.
Hey, I think if you're going to go live from there, you need to bring your producer.
Oof.
Just saying.
But yeah, so we'll be here for the next couple weeks, and then we're gone for a couple of weeks. But if you guys are interested in any more, if you got any more questions with regards to thermal night vision, feel free to leave them below. We'll be around for the next couple of days to answer questions. Make sure you hit that like button also, and we appreciate each and every one of you, and we hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Guys, John Faulkner with Survival Dispatch here today to talk about a brand new product that we've put together. We call it the Survival Dispatch Essentials Guide. The Essentials Guide is for those looking to get into prepping and just kind of unsure of where to start. It's packed with over 225 pages of survival and prepping information on categories such as food, water, shelter, bug out bags, get home bags, you name it, it's in there. We packed it with as much information from 17 different writers as we could possibly fit. All of it is laid out in a beautiful magazine editorial format, so you have great pictures that also show you exactly what you're looking at. We put it together as a starting basis for people to read and build upon. It's packed with tons of information that are there to help people along the journey of becoming a prepared individual. Click the link and get started today.